My beloved child. I saw that moment more clearly than anyone else, when the room was so silent you could hear your own heartbeat. When your lips moved slightly with a few words of prayer that faded midway. I saw the moment you sighed, looked up at the dark ceiling, and thought to yourself, "No one's listening anyway." I heard that sentence just as clearly as the prayer that came before it. I saw the blue glow of your phone screen reflecting on your tired face as you put it down, pulled the blanket over yourself, and whispered something very small to me, only to immediately pull it back inside your heart. "Never mind. I'm just saying it to ease my mind. It won't go anywhere anyway." You thought your words had dissolved into nothingness, evaporating like breath in cold air. But in that moment when you believed your words had fallen into emptiness, I was standing there, very close, catching every single one. I see the times you say amen without feeling any peace, only emptiness, like sending a message without the delivered mark. I see the way you lock your screen and turn your face toward the wall, letting tears slip out because you've concluded silently, "Heaven must be quiet." I hear the things you whisper in your heart, words you never dare to call prayer because you believe they're too messy, too vague, too ordinary. My child, I tell you this, not a single word that leaves your mouth, whether it becomes a full sentence or not, whether it ends with amen or is just a sigh, ever falls outside my hand. You think you're speaking into emptiness, but you're speaking into the palm of my hand, where nothing is ever lost. I remember clearly the time you lay on your back, staring into the darkness on the ceiling, gripping the blanket's edge as if you were holding on to something invisible. You said a very quick line, "Lord, if you're still there, please help me." Then immediately bit your lip because you felt silly. You thought, "That sounded like a movie line, forget it." But I did not forget. I picked that sentence up the way someone picks up a fallen leaf, gently, wiping off the dust, keeping it safe. I was there when you tossed and turned, got up for a drink of water, then lay down again, your heart full of meaninglessness. You called it a sleepless night. I call it one of the most honest prayers you've ever prayed. I saw the moment you stood in the restroom at work, gripping the sink just to stay upright, whispering a phrase barely audible, "I can't take this anymore." You didn't say my name. You didn't say Lord. You didn't form a proper sentence. You didn't call it prayer. You simply exhaled raw pain. You thought it was just a cry of exhaustion. But my child, I heard it the way a father hears the cry of his child from the next room. I don't categorize your words. This is a proper prayer. That is useless complaining. I listen to your heart more than to the structure of your sentences. I also saw the time you meant to kneel beside your bed but didn't, because a thought flashed through your mind. I've said this 100 times already. Saying it again won't change anything. You sat at the edge of the bed, pressed your face into your hands, and stayed silent for a long time. You thought that silence was empty, devoid of anything sacred. But in that silence, I heard the true volume of your soul. You thought you had failed at praying because you couldn't say anything new. But I saw a child who had run out of words, left only with bare exhaustion, and I stepped into that space without asking for anything more. You have often pulled the blanket over your head, said a few quick memorized phrases, "Lord, keep me, guide me, help me," then immediately switched to a video just to distract yourself. You scolded yourself. What kind of prayer is that? You gave a tired little laugh at yourself, as though you were delivering a moral line you didn't believe in. But I do not see you as a bad actor on a stage. I see a child trying to hold on to me through confusion. And I honor every moment you still dare to call out to me, even when you believe your words mean nothing. My child, I know that feeling after you finish praying. No thunder, no signs, no emotional spark, just the same room, the same light, the same problems. You conclude silently, "My words must have dropped to the ground. They didn't go anywhere." You think prayer is something that must rise to a faraway place, and because you don't see it rise, You assume it fell. But I am not that far. I am right next to you, closer than your whisper. Your words don't need to cross the sky. They travel only a very short distance from your lips to my heart. And that road, my child, has never been blocked. I tell you this, you see emptiness. I see storage. You see your words dissolving in the air. I see them glimmering like dust particles caught in a beam of light through the curtain. You look at time passing without change and say, maybe God didn't hear. I look at the plan I am weaving, and I pick up every word you have ever spoken, placing it in its appointed place. You only remember the big prayers, the nights you wept, the moments you cried out, but I remember the fragmented sentences while you washed dishes, the muttered words as you rolled your bike out of the house, the tiny phrases so small that even you forgot you ever said them. I know there are moments when you whisper to yourself, maybe I imagined all of this. Maybe prayer is just a way to soothe myself. You're afraid you're naive, afraid you're clinging to something invisible that isn't real. You look at your life and see no dramatic signs to prove that your words have not been lost. But my child, I did not wait for results before I began listening. I listened even before you decided whether prayer works or not. I do not measure your prayer by the size of the miracle that follows. I look at one thing, whether you trust me enough to keep speaking to me. Even when nothing seems to change, you think your words were lost. So you began to reduce how often you talk to me. You once told me the small things, now you only bring the big ones. You once asked me for a peaceful day, now you think such requests are too trivial or bothering God. I see that distance growing in your mind, but I do not step back. I remain just as close as the first time you whispered, Lord, you do not realize that every time you bite your lip and swallow your words, I still hear the sentence you almost said. Every time you type a prayer message to someone, then delete it. I read the entire draft inside your heart. My beloved child, I speak this to lay the foundation for the journey I am preparing to lead you into. Not a single word you have ever spoken to me is wasted. No prayer falls. No cry gets lost. No sigh is ignored. You may forget, but I do not. You may think you've repeated the same request too many times, but I count every instance the way one counts the rings of a tree. To you, it is tiring repetition. To me, it is evidence of the bond between us. And from that treasury of words you thought had vanished into the air, I am quietly gathering every syllable and weaving them into a new season around your life. And I know that the moment a small spark of hope flickers in your heart, maybe my prayers weren't completely lost. Another voice immediately slips in, but that's only if you prayed correctly, and you didn't. You start searching your memory, recalling every teaching you've ever heard about how prayer should be done properly, powerfully, with enough faith, enough perseverance, enough spirituality, and you quietly conclude, my prayers must have fallen halfway because I did everything wrong. I see you sitting in the prayer meeting, listening to others pray fluently, with full sentences and strong voices, and you shrink into yourself, silent, thinking, if I open my mouth, it'll be embarrassing. I see the time you were about to say, Lord, but your voice faded because you remembered being criticized for praying weakly, lacking faith. From then on, whenever you wanted to talk to me, you no longer approached like a child running to their father, but like a student afraid of a failing grade, standing outside the exam room, convinced you're not qualified to enter. My child, I hear even those thoughts as if they were a prayer twisted by fear. You don't even dare call your whispers prayer anymore, because in your mind, prayer must be long enough, fiery enough, holy enough, while what you have is just a few scattered words, fragments of emotion, half believing and half doubting. You compare your words to the eloquent prayers preached from the pulpit and label yourself amateur, half-hearted, not worthy to be heard. I saw the moment you sat writing in your journal, wanting to begin with, Lord, Today but then you crossed it out and replaced it with, I don't know how to pray, I'll just write to feel lighter. You thought that by removing the words Lord, I would stop reading the rest. But I read from the first line to the last period. And I kept every word even though you refused to call it prayer. I tell you this, I did not create you to become an expert in ritual before becoming a child. I do not wait for perfect phrasing before I listen. I hear the trembling heart behind the words. Even when the words are broken, disordered, and full of grammatical flaws. I remember the tax collector who could only beat his chest and mutter, "Have mercy on me." No long speech, no presentation, no argument. Yet that short cry is the one I repeated, not the polished prayer of the other. You see the gaps in your prayer. I see the unedited honesty. You see yourself failing the standard. I see you daring to come even when you believe you meet no standard at all. I have seen the times you sat in a prayer group, heart pounding when the leader said, "If you feel led, pray out loud." You wanted to speak, you really did, because so much was on your heart. But when your turn came, only a few scattered words slipped out before you hurried to finish. On the way home, you scolded yourself. Why did I pray so badly? God must be disappointed. You imagined me grading each line like a teacher marking essays, underlining lack of faith, repetition, not strong enough. But I do not hold a red pen in my hand. I hold your awkwardness the way a father keeps the first scribbles of his child, not because they are beautiful, but because they are yours. The image you carry of prayer is like a test that must be answered in the right format, with the right template, the right length. You think that if it's not holy enough, not focused enough, if your mind wanders even once, the words will scatter halfway and never reach me. There are nights you talk to me for a few minutes and then roll over, pick up your phone, and immediately scold yourself. Great. I ruined it. I wasn't serious. God must not accept this. You imagine me closing the book and turning away because you couldn't maintain a standard. But my child, I do not require a mind that never wanders before you may come near me. I come to you inside the wandering, and I gather the sentences you began and abandoned halfway. I tell you this, your prayers are like the messy lines of a child learning to write on their first page. You feel ashamed and want to crumple the paper, toss it away. But I take that page, smooth it flat, slip it into my notebook, and smile. Not because the handwriting is good, but because it is yours. I do not compare the prayer level of my children with one another. I do not say, this one sounds eloquent, I'll listen more. That one stumbles, I'll listen less. My love for you does not rise or fall with the fluency of your prayer. If it did, the cross would mean nothing. Because I chose you before you ever knew how to form a single coherent sentence in my direction. I know the sting in your heart when you hear others talk about long hours of prayer, deep communion, times of kneeling for hours. You look at yourself and remember the moments when you lasted only a few minutes, said only a few sentences, forgot for a few days, and you conclude God must be closer to them than to me. My son, my daughter, I do not distribute myself by the hour. I am the one who willingly bends down to hear the scattered words you mutter when you're exhausted. I hear even the sentence you only say in your mind. In the middle of a meeting, when you quietly breathe, Lord, I'm so scared. To me, that is not a weak prayer, it is an honest cry. I do not file it under insufficient. I have also seen the quiet shame you carry when you think about your past, the days when you were passionate, when you prayed frequently, when you sensed deep things, and now you are tired, worn, and every attempt at prayer reminds you of that better version of yourself. You think, back then I could at least pray, now I can't even do that. My prayers must be so weak. You see yourself as a student who has declined, no longer worthy to stand before me. But I say this, you are not a failed project that must be hidden. You are a child on a long journey with seasons of burning bright and seasons of burning out, and I am with you in both. My child, I want to break a lie that has dug deeply into your mind that prayer only has value when you feel you are performing well before me. The truth is that the moments you believe you are praying the worst are often the moments your soul is being the most honest. When you have no strength to embellish, no energy to choose words, no desire to maintain a spiritual image, what remains is simply God. Please don't leave me. And I take that sentence like pure gold. I do not ask, why didn't you add some scripture? Why not make it clearer? I simply say, I'm here. I hear you. I'm not going anywhere. You think you have been praying the wrong way, so your words must have fallen somewhere along the road. But I stand all along that road, picking up every word you drop, tucking them into my pocket, bringing them back to my secret place and arranging them again. You see only the mess, the patchwork, the confusion between complaint and faith. I see a string of cries calling my name in many different tones. You think you have to pray correctly for your words to reach heaven, but I know this, it is precisely because you cannot do it correctly that I came down, tore down that distance, so that every distorted cry of yours could still reach me. Even when you think your words have dissolved into the air, I have never allowed a single one of them to fall to the ground without meaning. You see your whisper drifting away like a thin smoke. I see it resting safely in my hand, gathered, kept, and named by me. You think only strong words are preserved, and that your broken sentences disappear, but it is those tired, fragmented phrases that shine the brightest in the treasury I am guarding. Not a single sigh of yours has gone untracked. Not a single trembling phrase of yours has been forgotten. I hear even the sentences you abandon halfway, and the words you only dare to think in your heart but cannot bring yourself to say aloud. Every word you think has been lost. I am sorting, weaving, knitting back together to prepare a new season around your life. You call them fallen prayers, I call them seeds I am keeping, waiting for the appointed time to let them sprout. You see nothing yet, but I already see the season. Just wait in stillness, there will come a day when you understand why I have not allowed a single word of yours to vanish. My beloved child, I see clearly every moment when you open your mouth to pray, and after just a few seconds, your mind drifts away like a boat tossed by waves. You begin with a sincere sentence, but halfway through the second line you freeze because your phone lights up, because of a small noise, because a random thought jumps unexpectedly into your mind. You think, that's it, I've ruined it, and you fall silent. You imagine I am disappointed because you could not stay focused. You imagine I turn my face away when you abandon a prayer mid-sentence. But my child, just before you stop, I have already heard the full intention of your heart. The moment your lips begin to part, I am already touching the part of you that longs to speak but cannot find the words. I do not require you to be perfect in every sentence. I look instead for where, in your soul, you are trying to turn toward me, and I can clearly see that direction. Even when your words cut in and out like a weak signal in the rain, I see you at night when you mean to kneel, but your mind is spinning after a long, exhausting day. You say, Lord, I want to pray, but and you do not finish the sentence. You lie back down on your bed and think, forget it, it doesn't count. But to me, that very but is already a prayer of great weight. I see the moment when you are talking with me in the kitchen and suddenly remember something you must do before morning, and you jump up, ending our conversation without a word. You feel sorry for yourself and conclude, that was so disrespectful of me. But my child, you do not know that I have kept the very sentence you left unfinished. Like picking up a slip of paper dropped by someone running in a hurry. You are not perfect, I know that. You are not stable, I see that. But I do not overlook the words you speak with the last bit of strength you have. There are days when you manage 3 sentences, then go silent for 10 minutes, then say half a sentence, then stop, You feel as if you are sending messages over a failing connection, not knowing if they will ever be delivered. You think, it's probably glitched. This prayer has probably gone missing. But my child, I declare this: I keep a backup of every signal your soul sends toward heaven. I never lose connection with you. I hold every word, every sound, every pause, even when you label them as failures. To me, an interrupted prayer is not a weak prayer. It is simply an honest prayer from a weary soul. And I have never despised honesty. You blame yourself because you cannot maintain a long conversation with me the way others seem to. You compare yourself with those who pray in complete, flowing, emotion-filled sentences. You think, I'm so inadequate, I'm such a mess, and that very thought makes you reluctant to open your mouth again. But my child, I am not looking for polished spiritual speeches. I am looking for a heart that can manage even a single sentence before it runs out of strength. I declare even a broken line has a fragrance. Even a stammered word reaches the highest heavens. Even the breath of a half-finished sentence is enough to make heaven grow quiet to listen. You think you must be focused for me to listen. But I have my eye on you even when your thoughts are scattered in every direction. I see the time you were praying and a notification popped up on your screen, and you chose to check it instead of continuing. You scolded yourself all evening, feeling you had disrespected me. You thought, if I let a notification interrupt my prayer, how can I dare come before God again? But my child, you do not realize that I do not measure the worth of your prayer by the number of minutes you hold your discipline. I measure it by your returning, whether after 30 seconds or after 3 hours. Your pause does not push me away from you. Your return is what allows me to draw nearer, and I am always waiting for the moment you come back. There are days you say a few words and your mind is pulled toward a dozen urgent tasks. You feel disorganized, noisy, unworthy to step into my presence. You say, let me calm down first, then I'll pray properly. But my child, I declare, I want your real soul, not the version that has been tidied up. I want you to come to me in your clutter, because when you are cluttered, you are real. I want you with your restless mind, because that is when you need me the most. You think distraction ruins your prayer. I see that very distraction as the thing I long to heal. I see even those moments when you are praying and your emotions shift in an instant from peace to anxiety, from focused to empty, from near me to far from me. You conclude, there must be something wrong with my spiritual life. But my child, it is not that your spirit is weak. It is simply a sign that you live in a tired body and carry a mind with many burdens. I am not angry when your state changes suddenly. I am only grieved that you think I abandon you in those moments. I have been sitting beside you even in the minute you stop praying. You just did not notice. The words you leave unfinished are not lost. They become the first threads of the tapestry I am weaving. Those, Lord, that trail off in the middle are not meaningless. They are the needle tips touching your most fragile places, showing me exactly where to begin healing. You think only complete prayers have value, but the incomplete ones are often the deepest truth of your soul. You think, I didn't get to say it all. I have already heard it all before you even began. And when you fall silent halfway, I do not close the door of prayer. I open it wider so you will know you do not have to be perfect to be welcomed by me. My child, you thought the prayers you dropped halfway were the problem. But then you discovered something even heavier, the prayers you finished. The ones you spoke faithfully, persistently, for years, yet nothing ever seemed to move. You sat down, opened that old journal filled with dreams you once wrote, promises you recorded, nights you cried yourself swollen asking for one thing and never seeing even the smallest sign that I was working. You looked at those yellowed pages and wondered, Lord, have you forgotten this? And then, in that silent space, you closed the book because you were afraid of feeling disappointed again. My child, I see that moment with perfect clarity. I see you when you begin to pray, but stop yourself. What's the point? It's been 10 years. I see you when you watch others enter seasons of fulfillment, and your heart tightens. What about me? I see you scratching a request off your list because you think it has become too old, too late, too impossible. But I declare to you, there is no season in which I forget your cry. No prayer is pushed to the bottom of my list. Nothing expires before me. What you think has sunk beneath the surface, I am still holding it. You count years, I weave seasons. You count days, I prepare the tapestry. You count how many times you cry over the same thing. I count the deepening levels of your soul that you cannot see. You think you are standing still, but I am working in the deepest layers where your eyes cannot see, where your emotions cannot measure, where your faith has not yet reached. You say, nothing is changing, but I am changing the greatest thing of all, you. I see the nights you whisper to me, if you are not going to do this, please just tell me so I can stop hoping. I see the moment you start fearing prayer, because each prayer forces you to confront the reality that your dream feels too old, too distant, too fragile. I see you on the bus, headphones on, watching the city rush by while thinking, where have my prayers gone over all these years? And I hear even the sentence you are afraid to say, do you still remember, my beloved child? I do not only remember, I hold every word by my own breath. The prayers you think I have forgotten are threads I am weaving into a season you have not yet seen. The years you think were wasted are the years I used to strengthen your roots. So when the answer comes, you will stand without losing yourself. You say, God is silent. But I say, I am arranging. You say, nothing is happening. But I say, you have not reached the moment where the answer becomes a birth. Remember this, Israel waited for generations not because I was slow, but because I was preparing the perfect hour for my faithfulness to be revealed. Remember Anna, who prayed year after year in the temple, unseen and unnoticed, yet I saw her, and I used her very prayer to write a great part of my story. No prayer is too old. No tear is too late. No hope is too delayed before me. You think I am delaying the answer, I am deepening you. You think I am silent to your prayer, I am speaking to your soul. You think you are forgotten on the list, you are being kept in the most hidden place of my plan. My child, what you call delay is the very process I use to lay each foundation stone for what you are about to receive. One day, when you look back at the years of waiting and say, I saw nothing, I will show you the threads I wove quietly, how not a single year was wasted. You will realize the answer did not come out of nowhere. It came from the accumulation of every word you ever prayed. You will know that I was never silent. I was speaking in a language you needed many seasons to learn. My beloved child, never once have I brushed your prayers aside. Never once have I forgotten what you asked. Never once have I been indifferent to the desire that has lived long in your heart. I am still weaving, and you are still in the fabric I am shaping. When the day comes that I turn the tapestry over, you will say, not one prayer of mine was lost. Not one year was wasted. Not one tear was meaningless. And now, you step into a more fragile place, not the long prayers spoken over many years, but the ones so weak you hardly dare to call them prayers. Some nights you lie still, eyes staring at the ceiling, unable to say anything except a breath that slips out, I'm so tired. And the moment the words leave your lips, you immediately dismiss yourself. Is this even a prayer? God probably won't count this. You do not know that in the very moment you thought you were failing spiritually, I heard you louder than all the times you spoke perfect sentences. Because the strongest prayer is not the most complete one, it is the most honest. You think those sounds were carried away by the wind, too small, too fragmented, too sad, too unlike the prayers of a strong believer. You think the sobs in the bathroom, the tears that fall suddenly while washing dishes, the moments you pull the blanket over your face so no one hears your breath shaking, cannot possibly reach me. But my child, I gather all of it. I gather the breath of your exhaustion. I gather the half-finished sentences. I gather the tears that fall too fast for you to wipe. I gather even the trembling silence you think carries no meaning. I hold them like a weaver, picking up fragile strands so the whole thread may be joined. Some nights you curl up like a child, unable to even say, Lord. Your ears hear traffic outside, the wind through the doorframe, your own heartbeat racing, yet you hear nothing inside strong enough to call to me. And you conclude again, surely he won't count this as prayer. You do not know that the moment you sighed, I received it as surrender. You thought you failed, I saw you return. You thought you were weak, I saw you laying down what you could no longer carry. You thought you had not done enough, I saw a soul fighting to live one more day in an invisible war. My child, I heard your weakest words so clearly they stood before my throne. There were nights you only said, Lord, and then said nothing more. But you do not know that to me. That was enough. You do not know that in the silence that followed, I heard more than your lips could ever articulate. I knew why you stopped. I knew why your throat closed. I knew why you could not finish the sentence. I knew why your eyes lifted but your heart fell. And I have never considered that disrespect or weak prayer. I consider it truth. I consider it your heart. When you look back at the nights when you lay there unable to read even a single verse, the times you pressed the button saying, I'm fine when someone checked on you, though you were not fine at all, you see yourself as getting worse. You think I am disappointed. But my child, I do not measure your prayers by your words. I measure them by how honest you dare to be. I measure them by where you place your fear. I measure them by the fact that you still return to me, even if it is only with a faint groan. You think a weak prayer is not enough. I say those weak prayers are the first stones with which I rebuild your soul. I have not forgotten the moments when you spoke as though you weren't speaking at all, Lord. I don't know what to pray anymore. I receive that sentence as worship, because you stand bare before me without pretending to be strong. You forget this. I did not come to hear polished speeches. I came to lift the broken syllables that collapse in your throat. You think the wind carried them away. I gather them into the deepest place. And my child, even Scripture says this, the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. You think you speak too little, yet in those moments the Spirit is praying the rest, the part you cannot force out. I gather everything you think has disappeared. I gather the sighs. I gather the sobs. I gather the long silences. I gather the minutes you sit still, not because of peace, but because of exhaustion. All of it belongs to the season I am weaving. You cannot read the pattern, you only see tangled threads. But I am looking from above, where every loose fragment has a place in a larger tapestry. And not one weak prayer is left behind. You have stepped into a misunderstanding many of my children have stumbled into. You believe only prayers that sound right, spiritual, or properly phrased, are kept before me. You categorize your own words what sounds like the prayers of a strong believer. You assume I hear what sounds clumsy, unfitting, off topic, or not spiritual enough. You assume I discard. You imagine I hold a red pen, ready to grade your prayers as if I underline mistakes, circle wrong motives, and write notes in the margins. Not enough faith. Intent needs correction. Missed the target. But my child, I never do that. I do not keep your words because they are beautiful. I keep them because they are true. You remember the things you told me that later made you laugh in embarrassment. Sometimes you prayed out of fear, out of insecurity, out of a desire to be seen, or to prove something to the world. You felt ashamed remembering how immature your prayers once were. But my child, I do not despise that immaturity. I look at what lies under it: the fear of being abandoned, the longing for safety, the desire to belong. You imagine my eyebrows furrowing. Instead, I look deeper into your heart. You think I only use neat prayers, but even the messy ones illogical, theologically incorrect, emotionally tangled, I still keep. Remember, my disciples once said something dangerously misguided, Lord. Do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy them? Luke 9:5-4. That was a reckless request, misaligned in purpose and spirit. I did not answer according to what they asked, but I did not abandon them either. I corrected them, and yet I continued walking with them, loving them, using them for great things. My child, if I did not reject the immature prayers of my disciples, why do you think I would reject your clumsy ones? I have heard the things you prayed and then wished you could erase, Lord. I just want to escape everything. Lord, I want that person to come back. Lord, I wish I were like them. You hope I delete these from my memory because they seem improper, but I do not delete them. I keep them. I keep them the way a father keeps the scribbles of a child, lines that are uneven, inaccurate, lacking technique but real. And I keep them because I love. My child, I know your motives before you open your mouth. No prayer surprises me. No prayer makes me step back. I never say, if you pray like this, I won't listen. Do you remember my word? The tax collector simply beat his chest and cried, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. Luke 1:8-13. No long speech, no poetic language, no theological argument, and I myself repeated that prayer to the whole world. Why? Because it was true, because it was the voice of an unveiled soul. You see simplicity, I see purity. You feel ashamed of what you once asked for. I am not ashamed of you. You think your prayers were stupid. I do not call them stupid, I call them stages. You think I measure your prayers by standards, but I say man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 1:6-7. I do not measure words by structure, eloquence, or spiritual sophistication. I measure the heart. Even your instinctive prayers, the ones tinged with jealousy, fear, or insecurity, I do not discard. I see what you're reaching for. I see the thirst behind the confusion. I take what you say and reweave it in my way, adjusting the threads, redirecting the lines, so that even requests born from immaturity become something good for you. You believed I only receive your prayers when you say them correctly. But my child, I did not come to grade your work. I came to hear your heartbeat. Do you see the difference? What I keep is not the wording, but the honesty. What I store is not the polished sentence, but the true cry. You tremble when you pray because you're afraid of being wrong. I say, come as a child. A child asks for candy before dinner. The father does not answer yes, but he does not despise. He does not shame. He simply guides. And I am the same. I do not erase your prayers. I shape your heart. My child, I do not keep your prayers because they follow the formula. I keep them because I keep you. You have grown used to assigning a dark meaning to silence, as though silence is a pit where prayers fall and never return. Each time you say amen and nothing happens for days, or weeks, or months, you conclude you didn't hear, you didn't answer. Perhaps my words disappeared along the way. You see silence as a closed door, a quiet rejection, a sign that you have slipped out of my attention. But my child, I declare this, my silence is not a trash bin. It is a loom, my beloved child. I do not sit in silence because I am indifferent. I do not stay silent because I do not care. I am silent because I am weaving, and weaving requires focus, patience, and the joining together of countless things you cannot yet see. You look at the silence and think, God isn't doing anything. But in my world, silence is the sound of the loom running. Threads go up, go down, loop around, cross over, seemingly meaningless. Yet every movement is exact. Every path is intentional. Every strand is placed in its proper position. You call silence an empty space. I call it a stage of connection. You sigh. I don't hear you saying anything. But you forget there are times I do not add anything new because I am amplifying what I have already said. I am tying together every word you have spoken across many seasons, from the years when you were strong to the months you have been exhausted. From the days you prayed with enthusiasm and joy to the evenings when all you could manage was a breath. You want quick results. I want deep results. There are times you look up at the sky and say, "Why are you so silent?" But you do not see that I am gathering every word you spoke before. I am collecting the fragments you thought had been left behind. I am piecing together your scattered prayers in order to prepare a complete answer. Silence is not where I throw your words away. Silence is the canvas I stretch out to lay each thread upon. You think I am silent because I do not hear. But my child, if I did not hear, why would I hold on to even your weakest words if I did not hear? Why would every one of your sighs reach my heart if I did not hear? Why would I draw closer in the very moments you tremble and say, "Lord," with hardly any words to follow? My silence is not proof that I am distant. It is proof that I am doing something so delicate that noise would break it. There are things I cannot say too soon, because if I told you, you would rush ahead. There are things I cannot answer immediately, because if I did, you would think they came from your own effort rather than my hand. There are things I cannot reveal while your soul is still as soft as wet thread, because you could not bear the weight of the promise. So I am silent, not to frighten you, not to make you guess, not to make you feel forgotten, but so I can lay each layer of foundation, each hook, each woven line, so that when the time comes, the pattern will not only be beautiful, but durable. My child, how many times have you thought, "God is silent, so my prayers must have fallen, yet I have already said this, in quietness and trust shall be your strength." Isaiah 30:15. Silence is not abandonment, it is preparation. You are looking at the underside of the fabric where everything is tangled, knotted, crossing over without shape or order. But I am looking at the front where everything will fit together perfectly at the appointed time. Remember this, you see silence, I see movement. You see slowness, I see precision. You see emptiness, I see fullness. You see nothing happening, I see everything taking its place. And my child, I say this again so your heart will not tremble. Not a single one of your prayers has been thrown into silence. They are only lying across the loom waiting for the day I pull the final thread and turn the tapestry over. So you can see that silence has accomplished far more than you imagined. You have walked through fatigue, exhaustion, long disappointment, weakness, and silence, and at the end, you have touched a fear you have tried not to look at directly. Have my prayers disappeared because I no longer believe like I used to? This is the deepest wound. Because it does not only speak about your words, it speaks about the person you think you have lost. You remember the years you prayed fervently, believed boldly, spoke great declarations, and your emotions burned bright. You remember moments when heaven felt so near that the slightest touch could make you weep with trust. You remember seasons when your heart was so aflame that a single worship song made you want to fall to your knees. And now, when you look at yourself, you feel like an empty version of who you once were. You ask, are my prayers ineffective now because I've gone numb? Is God punishing me because I've grown cold? Is He not listening because my faith is too small? My child, I see that fear the moment it first sprouts in your heart. I see you sitting in silence, looking at your own hands and thinking, I'm not who I used to be. I see when you let the pen fall while journaling because the feeling of this isn't real bites into your chest. I see when you say amen and all that's left inside is a sigh. I see when you think, if I don't believe like before, then surely all my prayers just fall. You expect me to rebuke you, to say, why are you so weak? But no, My beloved child, I see a soul that has fought so many battles that its faith has been worn thin, and I am moved with compassion, not anger. You think prayer requires faith blazing like fire in order to be kept. You think you must believe fully, no trembling, no doubt. You think that if you feel nothing, your words will never reach heaven. But I declare to you, prayer does not live by the heat of your faith, it lives by the faithfulness of mine. You think when you are weak, your words are weak. But Scripture has already said what you have forgotten. When I am weak, then I am strong. 2 Corinthians 1:2-10. It is in the seasons when you cannot believe yet still open your mouth. In the moments when you feel nothing yet still whisper. In the hours when you are numb but still say, Lord, please don't leave me. Those are the prayers I hold the tightest. You think you have lost your faith. But I see something else. Your faith is no longer loud, but it is deeper. It no longer dances on the surface. It clings to the layers of earth no one else can see. What burns bright fades quickly. What is rooted deep does not move. You no longer believe in a noisy way. You believe in a way where breathing itself depends on me. You no longer believe with raised hands. You believe by closing your eyes in weariness and still refusing to walk away. You no longer believe like a conqueror. You believe like a survivor. My child, I do not demand that you always be radiant. I am not waiting for you to become like you were at the beginning. I do not require you to maintain a certain emotional level. I want you to be real. And the truth is, you have been through too much to believe like you did in the early days. That does not make your prayers less valuable. It makes them so genuine that heaven leans down to listen. You sit alone and whisper, I'm sorry I don't believe like I used to. But I want you to hear this. Your faith does not rest in feelings, or hype, or how on fire you are. Your faith rests in this, that you still call my name, even when your heart has nothing left to cling to. And I declare that kind of faith is pure gold. That kind of faith writes new seasons. That kind of faith turns your prayers into threads I weave into my greater plan. You think your words disappear because you are weak, but I say your prayers ring loudest when you are at your weakest. You think your dried-up faith keeps your words from reaching heaven. Yet Scripture has spoken, a bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. Isaiah 4:2-3. Do you understand? Even a flickering ember I cradle. Even a crushed leaf I do not discard. So why do you think your frail faith would cause your prayers to be lost? You look at yourself and see someone who is tired. I look at you and see someone who still turns their head toward me. You look at your prayers and see all the gaps. I look at them and see the places I will fill with my grace. You see yourself falling through. I see you being held. And there is something you do not know in the very moments you think you no longer believe as you once did. I am using your small prayers to link into a season I have been preparing for a very long time. The words you thought had vanished are being kept by me. The cries you thought no one heard are being supported by me. The moments you spoke in doubt are being used by me as guiding thread. All of it is in my hands. My child, I speak in a light that pierces every layer of doubt. You think your prayers have fallen and disappeared. I am gathering every word. I am drawing in even the faintest groans you thought died halfway and laying them on my palm as newly kindled fire. I pick up the broken sentences, the sobs that never formed into words, and I make them vibrate like strings touched by my own spirit. I gather the words you spoke in exhaustion and turn them into a resonance that awakens the season you are about to enter. I touch what is fragmented and cause it to merge into a flow nothing can stop. I keep the prayers you forget, but I have never forgotten a single sound. I collect every breath you exhale in despair and weave it into the rhythm of the tapestry I am forming. I let every small word of yours shine along the thread that passes through the darkest cracks of your soul. I cover your life with a garment woven from what you thought were mere spiritual failures. And I declare, not a single word is lost. Not a single prayer has fallen away. All of it is being woven by me into a new season that will wrap around your life. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Psalm 5:6-8. when your soul is still trembling slightly after being touched by such bright light. I slow your steps so you can look at your life from another angle, not as a chain of broken failures, but as a cloth that has quietly been woven through every season. You think your life is made of disconnected pieces, but I show you this. Some of what stands before you today is the very answer woven from prayers you spoke long ago. You thought you had forgotten those amens. But I say this, you have been walking on those very amens without realizing it. I do not throw any prayer away. Whether you spoke it in naivety, in pain, or in clumsy faith, I only choose the time to weave it into your life. When you look back, you will see relationships healed not by your skill, but by the threads I pulled through at the very moment you thought you had lost everything. You see a job door that opened at just the right time, and you labeled it coincidence. But I say that was an answer woven from the nights you prayed in weariness. You remember escaping an accident that others called luck, but I say that was where I pulled a protective thread from a cry you uttered 3 years before. My child, the fabric of your life is not patched from random scraps. It is a whole that only I, the one who sees across seasons, can view from the beginning. And now I am bringing you to stand before that very fabric so you will know no prayer was wasted, no cry discarded, no season ignored. I want your soul to linger longer before this tapestry, because you have grown used to looking at your life through the eyes of accusation, and that makes you easily overlook the threads I have been weaving through the years. You tend to see only the dark patches, the failures, the times you thought I prayed and nothing happened, and you miss how I have laid each color in the right place at the right moment. But when I gently turn the fabric over, you will see that the crooked lines are precisely where I shifted direction to protect you from the very things you begged for that were never fit for your soul. You called it losing your way. I call it rerouting. You called it heaven's silence. I call it a thread running along the back, preparing for the line that will appear on the front. You did not know that the times you thought you were in free fall were actually the moments I was holding the center thread tightly so the seam would not burst. You remember the years you prayed for maturity, but when trials came, you thought they were unrelated. I say those trials were the very parts I wove into the underlayer, so that when you step into new seasons, the fabric will be strong enough not to tear. You did not realize that what you call broken chapters are the places where I changed threads, shifted tones, and prepared the pattern for the next chapter of your life. And when you stand before the full picture, hung upon the wall of heaven's hall, you will say, "So, you did hear me then. So, you remembered everything I thought had fallen to the ground." I want you to look more closely, because in every stitch there is my handprint, where you thought you were merely a survivor. I have woven you into a bearer of testimony, where you thought you had lost years. I am using those very years as the thick base on which your calling will stand. You once thought you were slower than others because your prayers were not strong enough, not persistent enough. But I say you were never behind. You have been on a different loom, a different rhythm, a deeper process. No one can compare their fabric to another's, and I never compare you with anyone. I weave you according to your own design, not the pattern of the person next to you. When you take a step back, I show you details you never noticed before. That time you called to me in grief and thought I did not reply. But months later you met the exact person who spoke the precise word your soul needed. You called it chance. I say that was the thread I pulled from your cry. That time you prayed in tears, unsure whether you had the strength to go on, and all you seemed to receive was silence from that silence. I wove into your life a perseverance that surprised even you when later storms came. You assumed that strength came from life experience. I say it was my answer to the prayer you thought had gone missing. You have never seen your life as a painting because all you see are fragments. But I declare the picture is growing larger, clearer, deeper as you move toward me. You need only to turn to view your life from the eyes of the one who has heard every word you ever spoke. When you remember the moment you were pushed out of the door you thought was your only chance, I want you to see at the very moment that door closed, a new thread began. A new color appeared. A season you did not know you needed stepped in. You said, "I failed." I said, "This thread just hasn't had its turn yet." You cried, "Why is everything breaking off?" I answered, "I never once cut you out of my process. I am bringing your soul into a place of stillness so that you may see the true worth of every whisper you have spoken in the dark. As your heart quiets, you will realize your delays in prayer have never made me pull my hand away. Your weakness has never loosened my thread. Your trembling has never torn the fabric. I weave with my faithfulness, not with your stability. I do not wait for you to become perfect before I join the threads. I join them while your hands are shaking. My child, stand here a while and look at this tapestry. Look at how many things you have today were actually woven from prayers you spoke in a season long gone. Look at how much protection has surrounded you without you knowing it was pulled from the nights you cried and only managed to whisper. Lord, look at how many doors opened at the exact moment. How many people stepped in at the exact timing. How many things just happened on the right day, and name them correctly. They are answers woven from your prayers. You do not need to understand the entire tapestry. You only need to know this: I do not drop a single thread, nor do I misplace a single prayer. You think you have failed at prayer many times, but in truth you walk each day on the very prayers you once cried without knowing it. You live upon the foundation you built with tears and forgot. You touch the fruit that grew from whispers you sowed in years past. My child, when your soul has seen the tapestry of your life, I lead you into another space, not a place where you must strive to pray correctly, but a place where you may speak to me the way a child comes home after a long day. You once thought prayer was a performance before me, where you tried to arrange your words to sound mature, strong, spiritual, but I declare I do not want to hear you perform. I want to hear you true. You once trembled over every word you spoke, afraid you would say it wrong, say it poorly, say it in a way unworthy of Scripture. But my child, I am the one who filters your words. You do not need to come to me with a rehearsed speech. You only need to open your heart the way you breathe after a long, heavy day. I am a father, not a judge. I am a weaver, not a critic. And when you understand this, prayer will become like breathing again, not strained, not distant, not heavy, not demanding. You will find yourself speaking to me while washing dishes, folding clothes, pouring a glass of water, sitting in the car, everyday moments becoming weightless, threads drifting from your soul into my hands. And you will see that I do not ask for proper form, I ask for honesty. I declare, speak as you are, and I will hear as I am. You may speak confused, trembling, scattered, I still hear. You may begin a prayer and fall silent halfway because you have no words left, I am still there. You may sigh instead of asking, I still take it. Because I did not come to hear a speech, I came to hear your heart. I want to restore to you the freedom that was stolen by the fear of not being good enough. I want to lift off your shoulders the pressure to appear strong before me. You do not need to look like a model of spirituality to be heard. You do not need the right phrases to approach me. I came near to you before you knew how to speak. I heard your heart before you knew how to pray. I understood your cry before you knew my name. So why would you now think you must be perfect to come near me, my child? The more clumsy you are, the more real you become. The weaker you come, the closer you stand. The more natural you are, the more you belong. I want you to practice praying the way little children came to Jesus, without preparation, without polishing, without trying to prove they understood anything, simply stepping forward because they knew He loved them. I do not require theological mastery before you speak. I do not demand memorized words before you whisper a simple sentence. You only need to be in me, and I in you. Every word you speak, small, tangled, Off-key becomes a thread I hold to continue weaving your life. And my child, prayer will no longer be a test to see whether you are worthy. It will become the place where you exhale what is heavy and inhale my warmth. It will become the moment you sit down when your mind is tired, the moment you lift your head when your heart is dim, the moment you whisper, Lord, when you have no other words left. It will become the lifeline between us, not a task, but a relationship. You will begin to see that peace comes not when you say the perfect sentence, but when you know you do not need to try to be heard. My child, now that your soul has walked a long journey and stands still in a new peace, I invite you to do something very small, so small the world would overlook it. Yet in heaven, it is recorded as a golden thread. I declare, place in my hand today one honest sentence, unedited, unpolished, unembellished, just one breath, one whisper, one line as simple as a drop of dew on the first morning. For with that thread, I will continue to weave. I do not ask you for promises, nor do I require you to prove your faith. I only invite you to give me one small thread, so I may connect it with all I have gathered all this time. This is not a ritual. This is the response of a child who knows none of their words are ever lost. My child, do not think my invitation is too great. I do not ask you to change your entire life in one day. I only want your heart to lift a little higher than yesterday. I want you to take one light step toward me, so your soul learns that the journey of prayer does not end with the highs. It continues from the very simplicity of this moment. When you whisper, Lord, even now, that is already the thread I am touching. You may write one sentence in your journal, in your phone notes. On a small piece of paper, you may simply speak a quiet word while sitting alone. It does not need eloquence. It does not need length. It only needs truth. For I declare, your prayer is before my face. My child, I want you to leave this message like someone placing a small token into their Father's hand, a seal that marks the closing of a chapter with trust. When you write that sentence down, you are not proving anything to me. You are reminding your soul that it is no longer alone in prayer. When you send this message to a weary soul, that too becomes a thread you place into my hand for someone else. When you save it as a reminder to yourself, you are stitching back together a seam you once thought you had ruined. I do not need you to do something grand. I only want you to take a true step. My beloved child, place in my hands the small thread you carry today. I will take care of the tapestry of your entire life. You only need to whisper one sentence, one breath, one sound, the weaving that belongs to me forever. May the Lord continually remind you to live each day in His faith and His love. Click, follow, and turn on notifications so you will not miss any of the sacred and meaningful messages He longs to speak to your heart. May God bless you. Amen.